Kareena, I think you're on mute.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'll just do that again. Hey everyone, welcome back to my show, Coffee with Kareena. And before I introduce Simi, I would like to thank all of you for giving me so much love on my previous video with Tyra, and all the comments and the positive feedback gives me so much motivation to do more for the law community. I would like to introduce my guest for today, Simi. She's a current trainee solicitor at Hogan Lovells, and she's on her last seat. And actually, she should introduce herself better than I can. So why don't you go ahead, Simi?
Hi, everyone. As Kareena said, my name's Simi, and I am a fourth seat trainee at Hogan Lovells. And before I begin, I just want to apologize for my somewhat unprofessional background. I was saying to Kareena, I just found a mouse in my house, so I'm kind of seeking refuge in my spare bedroom right now.
Oh my God. I think that should be all right. We've all adapted from the work from home scenarios, and everyone's been fine with their unprofessional backgrounds. I
Good.
think we should be back in offices soon, though. Um, how has it been working from home, though, Simi? While being on your training contract, not getting the enough support, or how has it been?
So I think this is different for everyone. So personally, I've really enjoyed working from home. I think you have a lot more control over your day. And so when you do have a bit of a quieter period, you can take advantage of sort of already being in your house and maybe doing some life admin tasks like your laundry or getting a workout in, which is nice. And I personally have received a lot of support, I think, from my supervisors because they've been really good at keeping in touch and setting sort of like bi-weekly calls to catch up and see how I'm getting on. So that's been really good. I'd have to say that I'm probably one of the luckier trainees. I've gotten a lot of support in that respect. And also, we do group calls once a week. So you get to interact with the wider team as well, not just your supervisor. So, yeah, that's been really great.
Oh, okay, that's really great. That sounds like a good positive point from Hogan Lovells that they're still continuing to give their trainees enough support. Um, Although, do you think the role of a trainee would change in a post-COVID world? Do you think there would be less trainees, or there would be more work from home situations, or how do you think it's going to work in the post-COVID world?
I think that now working from home, it's kind of given sort of your supervisors or more senior people in the firm more perspective in the sense that they can know that they can trust trainees to work from home. I think before there was kind of this perception where work from home and flexible hours apply to everyone except for trainees because trainees need to be in the office. Who knows what they're going to get up to when they're working from home? But I think this has proven that we can still produce good quality work and work from home. I don't think it will be something as regular as having like a 1 day a week slot, or maybe it will be, I don't know. But I think it will be less of a kind of needing to make an excuse like, oh, my boiler's not broken. Can I work from home today? It will maybe be a bit more of a regular thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that a lot of reports have proven that a lot of people have been more effective working from home, with because they're more closer to their families and more comfortable working at home. And yeah, there have been a lot of positive responses to that. So actually, with you being on your training contract currently, how is I think you're on your last seat right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I think you must have experienced all the seats and got a gist of everything. So what do you think has been your best seat so far?
Um, I think probably my most favorite seat was my third seat, which was competition and public law. I just thought that the subject matter of the seat was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the people in the team as well. Despite being in lockdown, I had a good rapport with them, and I was able to work with everyone in the team, which was really nice.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so like content wise, I think competition law was the most interesting, but then I think my first seat, which was in real estate, was also a good seat in terms of as a real estate trainee, you work on a transaction from start to finish. So you kind of see the whole life cycle of it and you deal with things like opening up a client account to sending out bills and things like that. So I think that was a good first seat to sort of get those skills and learn how to do those things really early on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds really good though. Not a fan of public law, though, as you mentioned with your third point. First year public law was not that great.
Not
Um,
for me either. It was probably my worst class when I was at university, but the competition law side of it, very interesting to me.
I'll keep that in mind. Um, Actually, as a trainee, I feel like it's very unclear to a lot of us law students about what exactly goes on in the life of a trainee. So, do you meet a lot of clients, and you work with them very closely? And if you do, what was the most interesting case that you worked on?
So I think again that depends on the seat. So my first estate from my first day, I was contacting clients directly and dealing with a lot of like the middle management people in between as well. Litigation, not so much. I think generally in litigation, you probably don't have any client contact, or if you do, it's very little. And that's just because of the contentious nature of litigation. I guess, that's sort of reserved for senior associates and partners to deal with. But I would say that now that I'm coming towards the end of my training contract, I've probably had quite a bit of client contact. And for the most part, it's been really positive. And I think once you start contacting clients and you're allowed to sort of email them on your own, you kind of develop your own style and your own relationship with them as well. And I actually had one client ask me to go out to dinner with her because she wanted to thank me for how helpful I was on something, and so yeah, so that's been really nice.
Okay, there's a lot of perks with dealing with your own clients then.
Yeah.
Um, Also, one of our live viewers was also asking, apart from the cases that you've been working on, have you ever gotten a chance to work on a pro bono case?
Yes, I have. So, as a trainee at Hogan Lovells, and actually even as an associate, you're required to do a minimum of 25 hours of pro bono work. And so I've gotten involved with a lot of the immigration clinics that we run. So this is helping people that came to the UK maybe as an asylum seeker or as a refugee and have basically developed their whole lives in the UK but don't necessarily have status or indefinite leave to remain, and then also go on to have kids that were born here and the lack of status has been passed on to them. So just helping clients sort of figure out what they can do, what applications they can make, and yeah, helping them through that process. So that's been really rewarding, actually.
Oh, wow, that's great. That sounds really nice. Apart from the generous pro bono work that Hogan Lovells does, and their amazing support even through during the lockdown, what do you think Hogan Lovells does differently for their trainees and does differently on their training contracts to train their future solicitors?
Um, that's kind of a hard one, I guess, because I don't really know what other firms do with their trainees. I would say that I guess this kind of stems into the question of why I applied to Hogan Lovells, but I
Yeah.
think people at the firm are really friendly, and that's generally the reputation that Hogan Lovells has. And even actually, this is something that probably sets it apart from other firms. I think even within the trainee cohort, everyone's very supportive of each other. There's not sort of this kind of behind the back competitiveness. I mean, there may be some with some trainees, but for the most part, I think it's generally very collegiate. And if one trainee in a department is really slammed, no one kind of like leaves at 5 and like doesn't ask them if they need any help. Everyone sort of pitches in and does their part. And I think from things I've heard of my friends training at other firms, that's something that's probably a bit different.
Oh, okay. That's actually very similar to a question one of our viewers has asked you. What is the trainee environment like at Hogan Lovells? Is it more competitive or is it more collaborative? So I guess that answers the question.
Yeah.
Um, Also, like you mentioned, it stems into the question of why you chose Hogan Lovells. It's one of the most common application questions. Why us? Why this firm? Why law? Why commercial law? So, what made Hogan Lovells stand out to you, and how did you know that was the firm for you?
So I had heard a lot of good things about it, like through other people. And so that's what prompted me to apply for a vacation scheme. And then luckily I was successful on that interview. And so I ended up doing a 2-week spring vacation scheme at the firm. And I actually thought that during my time, during those 2 weeks, that people were always reaching out to me and like taking me to coffees and things like that, and genuinely were interested in getting to know me and what my goals were and what areas I wanted to get into. And I think there were people from all levels that were doing that as well, from other trainees up to partners. And I think taking that time to take a VAC scheme student out to coffee and actually chat to them is something that I think is quite rare in other firms. And
Yeah.
that kind of proved to me that it was as friendly as I had heard it was. So I think that's one of the main things that attracted me. And then also the firm does like a broad range of work, and it's a big firm. So I think that was important to me in considering when I did my training contract that I'd be able to get a really well-rounded education on law and sit in a variety of seats. So yeah, that was another important thing to me.
Something people mention a lot, actually. It's very close to the answer you just gave. The culture of the firm. It speaks a lot about the firm. How, like you just mentioned, like just associates and partners actually taking out the time to go out with just a vacation scheme student, and getting to know them and putting the effort into teaching them and getting to know them. It actually leads me to the next question, which is, how would you describe the culture of the firm, and do you think it is translated into your working ethic at the firm?
Yeah, so I think the culture of the firm is it's branded as a transatlantic firm. So it's somewhere in between being an American firm and a British firm. And I think that is probably quite true of Hogan Lovells. I think many of you have probably heard of like the myth of American firms being very intense and very sort of work hard, maybe not as great work-life balance. And I think that that's not the case at Hogan Lovells. I think everyone that I've worked with at least has really respected weekends and evenings. And if you ever have had to work late or on the weekend, everyone is so appreciative of that. So it's not just assumed you will do it, it's actually genuinely appreciated if it comes to that. So I think that in terms of the culture is really translated in my time so far at the firm.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a really good point of the firm so far. The firm sounds really great to all our viewers today. So, as you mentioned before, you were a part of the vacation scheme. So, do you think being a part of the vacation scheme and then applying for their training contract or getting a training contract interview from the vacation scheme is an important part, or do you think attending a firm's vacation scheme depends on your application a lot? Like, does it help you get into a training contract?
So I think so when I was in the application process, I was always told that if you have secured a vacation scheme, it will be a lot easier for you to secure a training contract with that same firm. And I think that's kind of true because from what I've heard from even HR at Hogan Lovells on our first day of our vacation scheme, they said, like clearly we like you, we think you're good candidates, we would love to give you a training contract offer if nothing goes very wrong over these next 2 weeks during the vacation scheme. So I think once you've sort of jumped the hurdle of getting a vacation scheme, you've got another 2 weeks to basically improve or just show them your personality and that you could fit in with the firm. And also for yourself to meet people in the firm and figure out if it's a firm that you actually want to train at as well. So I do think that a VAC scheme does make things a bit easier. But then having said that, I do have a lot of friends that secured straight training contract offers off an application.
Yeah, I think as a law student, definitely I've also heard that a vacation scheme schemes your helps you like slide into a training contract really easily. Um, so as a law student, I like one of my most everyone is looking for the answer for this. How do you stand out on an application in the upcoming cycle? I think everyone is looking for everyone's currently everyone's application looks the same because of the past 6 months attending webinars just like this, online internships, the same similar courses. So what would make one person different from the other? How would you recommend to stand out in an application?
So I think the first thing I would say is that I think applying for training contracts and back schemes, it's like a bit of a game of luck as well, because it's all about, if you think about it, HR receives thousands of applications for like 10 or 16 spots. So it's about, the person reading your application and something standing out to them. And that can be so subjective. There's no one thing I could say you could do to make it stand out. But I think what is really key, and what I did when I was doing my applications, is look at the key skills and attributes that the firm says they're looking for in trainees, and then use any experience you have, even if it's a volunteer role or a part-time job or even a position you held in a society or even just being a member of a society, and just showcase how that relates to the skill that they're looking for. So you could say, I was part of the law society and these were my roles, and I had to balance my workload and my class commitments in conjunction with that. And that shows my organization skills, time management, blah, blah, blah. Just
Yeah.
really milk everything you have and don't be afraid to, because I think that is what successful applicants are doing.
Yeah, yeah, I think that it's actually a really good answer. But actually, from personal experience, I was just gonna say that I recently applied for some a firm, and I got rejected instantly. And there was a law fair that was happening, and so I asked them like, "Oh, I wrote all this in my application." So I asked the graduate recruitment like, why would I get rejected? Because I thought I answered everything that you were looking for, all the qualities in your applicant. And they said that, we were looking for you to talk about the firm and not about yourself. So I was quite surprised, and I feel like it depends on every firm on how you answer the application also, because like you said, to mention all the qualities that you've gained from societies and everything, I think that would also depend on every firm. What would be your view on that?
So I think it's a fine balance, because I think you also, I agreed, like HR at certain firms probably don't want to read what's already on their website. They don't want to, just read that over and over again. But then at the same time, they want to see that you've researched the firm. So it is really tricky to kind of find that balance between, okay, I've researched your firm, but I'm tailoring my answer to show why I would fit in with this firm. So I
Yeah.
think keep the description of the firm as minimal as possible, or like use it for a purpose. So say, I read about X deal that your firm has done. It's interested me because of XYZ, and I've gained an interest in this field because of a class I took, a society I joined, or, kind of, I guess, filter it
Yeah.
out like that. But you're right, it is very subjective. Some firms want to see all about the firm in an application, others don't want to see it at all. So I think it's, as you did, speaking to representatives at law fairs.
Yeah, I think it's like it's key to find the perfect balance in an application. Well, that was really great. But I think everyone makes mistakes just like I did, and I'm pretty sure back in your day when you were doing your undergrad degree and doing applying to all these applications, pretty sure you had your own set of hurdles and obstacles. So what was the biggest hurdle that you faced, and how did you overcome this?
I probably think like the sheer amount of rejection I got, like that was really demoralizing. And it and sometimes, like, as your experience as well, I would get automatic rejections, but I'm talking like would literally submit the application and an hour later it would say, sorry, our scheme's full, can't do it. I think I got rejected from an open day once, which I think was the most demoralizing kind of low for me. I think just persevere. I know a lot of people that were in my class at university that applied for training contracts or vacation schemes, and after the first like 4 or 5 rejections just said, oh, like clearly this isn't going to work out, that this isn't for me. But I think you just have to persevere, because at the end of the day it is a numbers game. And if you think about it, people that haven't studied law can also apply for training contracts and vacation schemes, and so that just opens up the pool for candidates so much more. So I guess just don't take rejection personally.
Well, that's really good advice. Thank you so much for that. That actually motivates me a lot. Yes, especially because I just received that rejection, so it motivates me to apply to my next application. I've been putting it off since really long now.
Yeah,
Um,
no, do it. I've kept all of my rejection emails, actually. I didn't delete them. They're all sitting in my inbox somewhere.
oh, wow, that's actually really great motivation. Um, Although in the current world scenario, midst of this pandemic and everything that's going on currently, um, if you looked back and you were a law student currently, what advice would you have given yourself, or what would you want to know back then, knowing what you know now?
I think it kind of in a way relates to my last answer. I would just like tell myself that it will work out eventually. I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself as a law student and like securing this golden ticket, which is a training contract or a vacation scheme, but you just have to like persevere, keep applying. And I know a lot of advice is keep your applications to 4 or 5 firms. I kind of tend to disagree with that advice because, again, I think it's a numbers game. But I don't think you should just send a mass number of applications. I think you do need to spend time to tailor them because then otherwise you won't be successful anyway, no matter how many you send out. But yeah, I think I would definitely just tell myself to keep going and reach out to people that have gotten training contracts or vacation schemes, ask what they've done in their applications, because you may learn something different from after each person you've spoken to, and that will help your application get better and better.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Sorry, moving on. I'd like to pick up a few questions from our audience actually.
Yep.
Um, how do you recommend researching about firms with so many websites nowadays, with Breck Network, Legal Chic, Law Careers Net? There's plenty of information. With your personal experience, what do you think works the best?
So I would probably start with sort of legal cheek and chambers and partners because that kind of gives you a general overview of the firm and their key practice areas. So that's kind of a good way to get a feel for what the firm does. And then I would also probably pay a lot of attention to the graduate recruitment brochures that each firm puts out because they spent a lot of time pouring resource into that and making sure that they're hitting the right message of what they want in a trainee. So that's a really good indication of things that you should probably be including in your application.
Yeah.
Other than that, so when I was applying to firms and when I got down to a few interview stages, I would set up a Google alert for the firms that were my top priorities. And then I'd get sort of news headlines of deals that they've been working on or pitches that they've won, new clients they've secured. And then those are other things that you can incorporate into your application and may not necessarily be updated on a website because it's quite quick moving.
Funny you mentioned the Google alert thing. A lot of people have been talking about the word commercial awareness. It's like the talk of the town, and all law students are going crazy about how to be commercially aware and what it exactly means. Because someone just says that, oh, you have to be you should know how the market works. Oh, someone says how you should know all the business deals, what the firm is doing, or the current world news, and it just brings up a lot of questions, and everyone has a different meaning to it, and it's very hard to display on an application. So how would you recommend displaying this in an application, and how do you think you stay commercially aware?
Commercial awareness is such a buzzword. It's so difficult to, I guess, not explain what it is, but to figure out how to keep on top of it. I think like one of the obvious things is just reading the news, but reading a variety of news. So I would say like BBC, the business section, that just gives you a highlight. It doesn't necessarily go into the actual sort of motivations behind why a business may have done a certain thing or not. So I think reading like the Financial Times, The Economist, those are really good ways of keeping on top of the headlines. Even if you don't have time to read it all, just seeing the headlines and knowing what's going on in different industries is a good place to start. For me, I demonstrated my commercial awareness because my first degree is actually in commerce. And so I kind of demonstrated that I had an interest in business already and that I had taken courses in business law in my first degree as well. So that kind of helped demonstrate that I had like a long-standing interest in the subject as well. But I think it's also being aware that what you read in the headlines isn't necessarily commercial awareness. Like in practice, it will be why a business would make a certain decision. So, for example, say if company A wants to sue company B, under law, yes, the company could sue company B, but company A may not want to because it may not have the budget. You need to look at its profits. You need to look at future plans. Will it bring negative PR? Will that affect any products or services that it's launching? So it's sort of understanding how business or headlines can affect commercial decisions. I don't know if that was a good explanation, but
Yeah, I think it was, because I feel like everyone has their own understanding of what it means and how they stay commercially aware. So I think it depends on every person, and there are a lot of different views out there of how to do it. So I really actually appreciate I really like your answer, because I think that's something I that's my understanding of it too. Just understanding how businesses work and being up to date with the current news. Um, Anyway, moving on to our next question. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of talk about how there are successful candidates just like you, who are in their who have achieved their training contracts, or they're associates now, and they are charging students like us to mentor us and give us a
hi, sorry, I don't know if my internet dropped off.
It's okay, no worries. We're back on track, I guess. With technology nowadays, everyone is having technical difficulties.
So your last question, I think you were starting to say that some associates are charging students for advice.
Yeah, like a mentorship scheme. They're charging either for advice, or they're creating PDF files like booklets and selling them for quite high prices, actually.
What are the
Um,
prices? Like what does like an hour coffee get you? How much is that?
Um, I actually someone I haven't inquired, but someone DM like Instagram messaged me the other day, and it was about like £350 for about like 3 meetups or something, and yeah, it was it's quite a lot. And then for like the PDF files, it was on discount for £50,
That is
and
crazy.
so yeah, there are a lot of people give selling their advice and their mentorship for to law students, and there's a lot of talk about how it's unfair to students who can't financially afford it. So one of our viewers today has asked, would you recommend a mentor or not?
Not if you have to pay for it. Like personally, I think that's so ridiculous. I remember when I was applying for training contracts, I found it really difficult to like pin people down and actually get meaningful advice from them. They'd often just say, "Oh, like don't worry, it will work out." And obviously that's nice to hear, but not really helpful. And I always said if I ever get a training contract, I would help as many people as I could just because I understand what that struggle is like. So I would never personally charge anyone for advice. I don't think that anyone's quality of advice is going to warrant being paid as well. Like unless they're in HR and going to secure a actual placement for you, but then that's illegal, so you can't do that. But I definitely recommend mentors and speaking to people and a variety of people, but I don't think you need to pay for it. I think that's just ridiculous. I can't
Yeah,
believe people are doing
so yeah, I'm actually so thankful to people like you who actually give out their time and come on webinars like this and give us advice and actually talk about their experience, because it helps not only me but so many other law students. And it's actually great of people like you to do such things. So thank you so much for this.
No, no problem. I'm thankful for everyone that helped me, so it's just like paying it forward.
Yeah, so moving on to the next question. What are the work hours like at Hogan Lovells? Obviously, there's a huge talk about how law firms have a lot of bad hours and long hours. So obviously, it wouldn't matter right now with the work from home situation, but previously in the pre-COVID world.
Um, Again, I think it depends on the department. So my first seat, which was in real estate, I had really, really busy days, but I never really left the office at any time past 7. I think there were maybe a handful of times where I had to stay until 10. So that was all right. My second seat was in litigation. Again, it depended on if there was a hearing or an application that was due. Things would get a bit busier then, but I think I worked one night until half 11, and that was the latest. Last seat, again, I think because of COVID, things started to get a bit quiet, so it wasn't as busy as maybe it had been in the past, but my hours weren't bad there. I had to work a few weekends, but I was fine to do that again because everyone was so appreciative about it. And then the seat I'm in now is a finance seat, and finance across any firm is known to be quite intense, hours wise. So I could definitely say my hours have been pretty intense in this seat so far. But that's because it's really busy right now. So I've had probably 2 weeks of like 9:30, 10 finishes, which isn't like so bad in the grand scheme of things. I'm not pulling all-nighters, but after 2 weeks it gets a bit tiring. But yeah, no, it hasn't been bad.
Okay, that sounds really good. Talking about all your seats and in finance and litigation, actually, it brings me to ask you how did you pick all your seats? Well, was it up to your own choice, or does the firm help you, or does it depend on something, or how did you pick your seats at the firm?
So the firm's really good in that before you join, they put on what they call like a practice area fair. So you get to meet the associates and trainees that are currently in all the different departments, and they have little booths set up, and so you can go and speak to them and ask what their experience has been like and what type of work they're working on and who the supervisors are as well. So that's really great. So you have that before you join the firm. You then pick your first seat, and then halfway through your first seat, there's a second practice area fair where you can then ask the same questions to different firms, or it's not different firms, sorry, different practice areas if you have a different idea of where you want to sit. And then from there, you choose like your final 3 seats. And again, I was really lucky. I got every seat I wanted. I actually asked to not sit in litigation, but it's an SRA requirement to sit in litigation. So personally, I'm not a litigator. It's not me, but you have to do it. But yeah, I was really lucky. I got all the seats I wanted. The firm is there to support you if you're not sure what you want to do. And they actually have like one-on-one sessions with you as well, so that you can sort of talk through what your ultimate seat plan would look like and where you're thinking of maybe qualifying. if you have an idea at that stage. If you don't, like, that's fine, because that's sort of the point of the training contract anyway.
Okay. That sounds really good from the firm side that I guess your life of the affairs doesn't end as a law student. It keeps going on until you're in the firm as well. Coming to talking about a law student, one of our viewers has also asked us, what tips do you have on law essays? Like, as a law student, and especially in my first year, I was all over the place, not knowing how much I'm supposed to explain any topic. And I think a lot of students are in the same boat, structuring their law essays.
Yeah. I actually, I think I realized at the end of law school how helpful it was to speak to seminar leaders when it comes to structuring your essays. And so I remember my final class was in IP, and I had to write like a mini dissertation, and I had no idea where to begin. I was so lost and confused. But my seminar leader was so helpful. I had so many sessions with her, and she would just chat through my ideas and help me structure my essay. And I think, yeah, so my first suggestion would be seminar leaders are definitely a huge resource. And secondly, I think don't be so stuck on a certain format. I think, when you've worked on something for maybe 2 days, you kind of think, oh, like, I'm not that into what I've written, but I kind of have to stick with it. Like, don't be afraid to change things around. Because I think if your gut tells you it's not right, it probably won't read right either. So, yeah, be flexible, I guess.
That's really great advice. One of our the viewers has also asked on A level grades actually. So, do you think A level grades matter when you're applying to a firm for their vacation scheme or their training contract, or do firms look at it? Or does Hogan Lovells look at it actually?
So this one's a difficult one for me to answer because I didn't do A levels, so I don't really know what the equivalent was for my situation. I submitted my high school grades. What I can say is that I think it is something they do look at. I don't know if they put as much emphasis on it as they would the university grades, but if your A levels didn't go the way you expected them to be, and there's like a sort of black mark, if you will, in your transcript, there is a section to talk about mitigating circumstances. And so if that applies to you in your situation, definitely make use of that section and explain maybe what you were going through, or if there was something that happened in your life that kind of caused that dip in your grades. Also, I would say that seeing an improvement in your grades, that's something that you can also speak about in your application. You can say that you really, focused on learning, or finding out what worked for you in terms of learning, and that you worked hard to improve your grades, and that's evidenced in your transcript. So there's always ways of sort of tailoring it in a positive light and working for you.
Yeah, that's actually that sounds really great. Um, I think a lot of people have issues with their A level grades, and they're doing better in college. So I think that really works out for them. Um, Although a really good question comes to my mind right now. Since you're also from a non-Russell Group university, there's this myth of how students from non-Russell Group universities don't stand a chance or stand a low chance compared to other universities applying to law firms. Did you face this issue, or how did you overcome this myth?
I think it's definitely, it is true to an extent. I think it was much worse when I was applying. I think it's definitely getting better because firms are recognizing that the students that they're going to get from Oxbridge, for example, there's nothing that sets them apart from other non-Russell Group universities, for example. I mean, like, everyone works hard, and you can't really sort of label one university as harder workers than others. So I think that is something that is changing. I suspect it was something that was impacting my success rate. Again, I don't know, but from how quickly certain rejections were being rejected, I think there was like some kind of I don't know, algorithm that was like taking out people from certain universities. But I would say don't let that stop you. I think still apply to the firms you want to apply to. And now a lot of firms are also doing blind recruitment, so they don't see what university you're applying from. So I think that helps take out some of that stigma as well.
Do you think that stigma exists at Hogan Lovells though?
No, I think it used to. I'll say that for sure because I look around at sort of the senior associates and partners, and they all have come from two universities mainly. But then if you look at the current trainees and the junior associates, there's such a diversity and mixed pool of people. So I think that is no longer a issue at Hogan Lovells.
That's a really good improvement in from the law community, actually. Um, there's a question about the Watson laser test, actually. And I'm not sure if you ever had to give it, or how did you prepare for this test?
So I prepared for this test by using this software called Jobs Test Prep. And so I think you can actually get a free subscription, but then there's also a subscription where you pay some money and you get more tests available to you. So I'm horrible at taking those kinds of tests. I don't really know what I'm doing or like what the premise of the test is really. So I thought that was really helpful for me. I know some universities' career advisors also offer that same software, but the university will already have the subscription. So I would definitely suggest checking in with your careers advisors to see if that exists and you can maybe get that assistance for free. But yeah, jobs test prep is something I invested in and would recommend.
Okay, that's actually a great advice. Thank you. Um, Lauren, also from our live viewers, has asked you what is diversity and inclusion like at Hogan Lovells?
So I would say that the firm in the past 2 years or so has made a huge effort at making D&I one of their top priorities. I think this is something I've definitely seen the firm be really proactive about, not in terms of sort of minorities, but also in terms of females as well. We actually have something called the 50-50 committee, which I'm a part of. And it's the idea that there should be equal representation of men and women at all senior management levels. And it's not called Women at Hogan Lovells because the idea is that men also have to help women achieve that goal and not be sort of barriers to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the firm's definitely proactive in this space. Time is going to tell how successful it is because I think not even just at Hogan Lovells, but in law and even in finance to an extent, you look at a lot of senior management or the people that are high up and they all look a very certain type of way. So I think time will tell what happens in that space. But in terms of trainees, a very diverse mix, very, very diverse mix, which is nice to see.
That's really good to hear from the firm. Although I like to conclude and wrap it up with final two questions. So, what do you think Hogan Lovells' USP is? What is their unique selling point? What is different about them?
So I think the unique selling point is that because it's a transatlantic firm, you'll get really sort of high quality, multi-jurisdictional work, but in a really friendly environment. If I was to sum it up, I think that is the USP.
Okay. And my last question would be, what would be the top tip you would give to everyone applying in the current application cycle?
Top tip would be to keep your application as current as possible. So, like I said, yes, look at the websites and look at brochures and see what's mentioned there, but also keep an eye on the news and include things that may not necessarily have yet been published on websites or deals that the firms that you're applying to have worked on that may not necessarily be published on their websites either. So, yeah, that's my top tip probably.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Simi. This was a great webinar. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Uh, I hope everyone who is watching us today enjoyed, and anyone watching us in the future. If you reached the end of this webinar, thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos. There's so much more content coming up in the next few days. So do like and comment. Give me your feedback. I would love to hear who you'd like to hear from next. And thank you so much for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.